Oftentimes at night, I like to wander the halls of the Fireside Tales. As I walk down the halls, glancing at the hundreds and hundreds of books that line the shelf, each book containing their own adventure, their own secrets that could unlock the very mysteries of the universe itself. Now, I want to assure you all that all the stories that I tell you here are entirely true, or at least based on fact. The story tonight is no exception. It concerns one by the name of Mr. Hinkelstein. Now, like all the characters here at the Fireside Tales, Mr. Hinkelstein is an average man. He has a wife and 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and he works at the Northwest Railroad Station. Now, Mr. Hinkelstein, unlike most people, enjoyed his job at the railroad station. He loved to greet people as they were going off to another state, and he loved to know what was going on, and asking them how their day was. And another thing about Mr. Hinkelstein was that he was obsessed with following the rules. He always said that rules were created for the reason, and whenever he had a problem, whenever he had any concern, he always sent a letter to the courthouse, and he knew that they would clear up matters for him. Well, anyways, one day Mr. Hinkelstein was sitting there, filing paperwork, when a man came up, and the man was an older gentleman with a wide mustache on his face, and his name was Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Edwards came up and said, Excuse me, sir." And, Mr. Hinkelstein looked up. "Yeah, what is it you want?" "Philadelphia, please." Mr. Hinkelstein, he gave him a ticket, but as he gave it to him, he looked down and he said, "What's that you got there?" And the man said, "This is my pet hamsters, for the boy." Mr. Hinkelstein, he shook his head. No, you have to have the right certificate for that." And the man was really in a rush to get going. He didn't have time to get the right certificate, so he threw the cage to him and said, "Here, you take it." And he ran off. Well, Mr. Hinkelstein, he took it and he looked down and he realized that it was 2 guinea pigs. And he went in and he got a little certificate and he was about to file it, but he couldn't decide whether he should file it under a hamster or a pig. So he decided he'd send a letter to the courthouse and have them clear up the matter. So that is exactly what he did. He sent it straight to the courthouse. And the courthouse got the letter, and the one man by the name of Mr. Folger, he got the letter, and he looked at it, and he sent it to the main judge, and the judge looked at it, and he sent it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court argued it all over and over again, trying to decide whether a guinea pig was a pig or a hamster, and then they sent it back to Mr. Folger, and then the whole thing ended up getting lost in the mail. And that was what happened. Anyways, Mr. Hinkelstein soon realized that the 2 guinea pigs were a boy and a girl, and they were getting to like each other. And soon enough, there were 6 guinea pigs. And Mr. Hinkelstein had quite a deal going on, and he decided he'd send another letter to the courthouse and see if they could clear up the matter. So that's what he did. He sent it to the courthouse, and Mr. Folger got it, and Mr. Folger sent it to the judge, who didn't know what to do with it and couldn't decide whether a guinea pig was a hamster or a pig, so he sent it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court couldn't decide whether it was the guinea pig was a pig or a hamster or not, and finally, the whole thing just got lost in the confusion, and that's what happened. And Mr. Hinkelstein was having a bit of a problem now with the guinea pigs, because they were reproducing like mad, and his dog was getting bit on the tail and finally had to run away, and the guinea pigs were eating up the desk, and they were biting holes into his boots, and Mr. Hinkelstein was going absolutely mad, so he sent another letter to the courthouse, figuring that they just must not have gotten the first 2 in the mail. And Mr. Folger got the letter, and he looked it over, and he rushed to the main judge, and the judge couldn't decide whether a guinea pig was a pig or a hamster, so he sent it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court began to argue it back and forth, and then it just got all lost in the confusion in the mail, and so Mr. Hinkelstein was now having quite a problem, because there were so many that he had to get them out of there in crates. And the guinea pigs were now tap dancing all around and having a jolly good time and laughing at Mr. Hinkelstein and throwing water balloons at the dog, and Mr. Hinkelstein was going absolutely crazy now, and in fact he was very mad, and he had turned bright red. And so he began to get them all into crates, and he put them in a big truck, and he stamped them, and he took them straight to the courthouse, and he dumped them off there. And all the guinea pigs began to run in the courthouse, and the people in the courthouse, including Mr. Falger, didn't know what to do with them, and they ended up going to the Supreme Court, and suddenly the whole Supreme Court was filled with guinea pigs, everywhere running around and reproducing, and although the Supreme Court should have known what to do with the guinea pigs, they were too confused about whether to label them as pigs or hamsters, and they were getting so confused by it all that they ended up being there for a very long time. And from that moment on, Mr. Hinkelstein would allow any pet to come in, dogs, cats, whatever you like, but if a guinea pig ever came, he would simply kick you right out of the railroad station, or send you to the courthouse and let them clear up the matter. But anyways, that's the story, and whether you choose to believe it or not, it is an entirely true tale, word by word. As always, sweet dreams and good night.